you're not meant to figure it out. So you were literally correct in your thoughts of like, I don't know. And it's those that are audacious enough to like find beauty in the not knowing that actually end up receiving the clarity. Wow, I feel dusty.
I know we haven't.
Is it rusty or dusty?
Rusty. Did you say dusty?
Yeah, because I was like looking at my dusty mic.
That's hilarious.
It is rusty.
One can also feel dusty.
You can also be dusty.
Then I think like probably 2.5. I don't even know when the last time we did was. Probably like 2 weeks ago. Right before I left, I think.
It's just so crazy when we're like out of that flow because I just feel, I don't know, I feel like weeks of us, like 2 weeks of us not in our normal flow literally feels like 3 months because of how much we like.
I know. It's tough.
Also, have you ever thought about the fact that because we have such like this divine friendship where we're acting as these mirrors for each other, we literally die and are reborn like daily when we're in our flow and we're not on vacation and we're like actually really tapped into just like constant connection, work, expansion.
No, it's insane.
So yeah,
It's
I am
wild.
feeling dusty.
Dusty and rusty. We're gonna WD-40 you up today. And we'll be good to go.
All right, I guess we'll leave that in the episode. We'll get right into it now. Welcoming, guys. We are recording. We've had some solo episodes, so now we are back together. I'm still on vacation. Bella's home. And we are excited to connect with you guys. Today we have a juicy conversation on our friend Chat GPT. And before you go running and think we're going to shame you for using Chat GPT, this is going to be a very open conversation where we're really understanding just the complex relationship that we all have with chat. And one of our friends actually calls Chat GPT Chad. Just for short. And today the goal is to open up this really beautiful conversation where we're going to talk more about this very subtle sense of, I'm going to say, power and creativity. And there's this very sacred moment in our creativity and in our process of creation where something really magical happens. And Bella's going to drop us in and talk about this through the magic of her genius and creative genius. But in that moment of feeling like you don't know something, feeling like you need to reach for ChatGPT, we start to close off our channel and kind of give our power away to this technology. And in this moment, it feels so innocent. But what I've been thinking about is the compound effect of that. And I too have found myself these days thinking about like in a moment of just checking to see if, I don't know, like something with a post of like, how can you make this more like catchy? And instead of thinking about it yourself, you just quickly like go to ChatGPT and prompt it to ask, you prompt it with that question. And I started thinking about how there's this moment of discomfort that you always talk about where you feel like you don't know and you're kind of floating in that space of just, it's like the space right before creation. And I started to think about how there's that same space in the process of feeling your emotions and emotional alchemy, where as a society, we have really stopped intuitively feeling our emotions because of the amount of distraction and technology and just ease of pleasure and dopamine that we have access to everywhere. And I started to think about how in the process of feeling our emotions, there's this period of discomfort. And when we lean into that with presence and opening ourselves up to it in the emotional process, that's where the magic comes in of feeling and releasing. And this is very present and hot and heavy for me right now, because last night in the portal call, we actually dove into a powerful lesson that I taught in one of the subconscious rewiring sessions on emotional alchemy. And I ran everyone through my 7-step process of emotional alchemy and how this is really such a key in the manifestation process. And in this process, there is this sacred moment of discomfort, of wanting to run, of wanting to pick up your phone, of wanting to, let's say, lean into whatever source of pleasure is your personal tendency for avoiding discomfort. And one of my steps is that it is so important to just seek stillness and presence and to get comfortable with being in that discomfort of feeling the vibrations and feeling the emotions. And I started to realize that with the process of creativity, there also is this moment. And I've been picking up on this from your teachings of what you're talking about in your posts on Instagram. And I would love for you, being the creative alchemist that you are, to really drop us into some powerful awareness, lessons, teachings, your perspective on what you see is the impact of chat in these moments where we're running to figure something out or just reaching for that quick answer instead of sitting in that discomfort of not knowing something and allowing ourselves to open up our channels and actually be our own source of creative intelligence.
Yeah. So it's interesting because in the creative process, it's the same thing that you're saying with emotional alchemy, with creative alchemy, and any type of process that has the potential to put you in touch with source itself. Today, we live in this time when there are any number of versions of a chat GPT or a tool or a escape that severs that connection immediately and starts to make you think either that you are bad at the thing you're trying to do, or you're not creative, or, you know, your emotions are a problem, etc. And where we're at right now with so many incredible tools that are, on the one hand, some tools of convenience, on the other hand, are tools that actually are helping us to evolve and innovate and expand. It's social media, Instagram, it's ChatGPT, it's AI tools, it's scrolling, it's a toxic relationship. It could be anything that severs you because you run to it to get something that you think you yourself cannot get or that you yourself cannot create. And in the creative process, there is discomfort baked into it. Anything that is truly worth you creating, I believe, has resistance built in, and it's meant to be there. I wrote this Substack post one time explaining how resistance is, I called it energetic molasses, and it's a sticky substance on purpose put in front of you so that you actually have to effort / get out of your own way to get to the page. And that's because creative energy is one of the most powerful sources of energy in this entire universe. And human beings have that energy to a degree, probably more than I think other species. And so it's like the universe purposely says, you don't get to just put this anywhere. Okay. I don't want you to just splatter this over the page and not think about what you're doing. I want you to feel the discomfort so that you actually, once you get to the page, are locked the fuck in to how you're going to use this energy. And so we have this energy of discomfort, of resistance, of doubt, of whatever flavor it's taking on. And instead of seeing that in-between space as something that means you're actually onto something and you are very close to the breakthrough, we are essentially taught, and then it's reinforced by the ease of all of these tools and distractions and programming and all the things. We basically take a step back and we turn completely away from where the gold is. And where ChatGPT comes into the equation here is you have this tool in front of you that is the biggest lie of instant gratification out there, where you can literally prompt any fucking question you have, whether it's about yourself or your work or an email or a relationship, anything, and be in a fraction of a second, spit out some type of answer. That is so insane as a thing in and of itself. Like, arguably, there are very few other places in the entire human experience that happens. When you ask a human being a question, they're processing and speaking at a rate that you have to sit and like fully listen and see how it's feeling in your body. So it's an insane energetic to be facing for especially humans that we're like not yet ascended to the degree of having instantaneous creation. Maybe, we'll get there. But right now, baked into the human experience is resistance and having to literally feel like you are swimming through molasses to get to where you want to go. And that is divinely designed because of how powerful creative energy is. So the thing that's happening, and this was also really inspired by a friend of ours voice noted me asking my opinion on ChatGPT and how I use it, because she shared with me that she was starting to feel overly reliant on it. And like she was just sort of defaulting to using it. And this is really important. I noticed the same thing in myself a couple months ago where I just realized, oh my God, I'm using this as a total default. Anytime I have a question, whether it's, something to research, which is pretty innocent and is like, okay, that's fine, right? Like do your Googling and learn information. But then it started to become about my own intuition, about my vision, about how to essentially learn more things about myself. And I could feel that I was having a question come in and immediately overriding the process that was about to flow through me of going from an inspiration, a question, to an idea, to an answer, to a creation. And it's like you literally throw a knife in the middle of that process and you turn to ChatGPT and you're like XYZ, asking literally anything, and you get an answer spit out in front of you. And over time that accumulates, like you're saying, where you feel very lacking of life force, and you honestly, like, you feel sick and you feel disconnected from your essence. And we're seeing this happen with social media and anywhere. So I point that out because it's always the energetic of any time you are throwing, you're severing that process that is very sacred to get to the actual gold of, the revelation or the download or the alchemized emotion or the idea for your book or the thing that the caption you want to write. We're like basically programming ourselves to give up at the second that we don't know what the next word is going to be. And the reason why that place where you don't know the answer, why you don't want to have an immediate answer, that is not actually what you want. Because this other thing I realized was there's no actual instant gratification. You're not gratified because you have to keep going back. So it just turns into an addiction where you just need a hit always, always, always to feel better. And when you're actually honoring your creative process, you awaken this very sustainable, regenerative life force energy in you that is very life-giving and is not an addiction, right? Because you had to essentially have some discomfort and resistance to get there, but you recognize that discomfort, it's just a label for a sensation that we are saying, oh my God, that's uncomfortable. And that means yada, 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 right? I don't have the name of this chapter yet. Fuck, I suck. I can't write this book. And what I want to convey here is it is in that space that it's like you're literally a millimeter from the capital S source that will provide you with the quote unquote answer. And it's in the space that you realize the point is not even to get to the, last word of what you're writing. It's to be in the energy of writing. Like, it's actually really sad when you finish a project for most people. It's like, oh my God, it's over. Like, what the hell, And then you likely are going to get into a new project and you're going to start that process over again. And if we are constantly robbing ourselves of that sacred discomfort in between, that is what leads to feeling completely disconnected from yourself, from source, from this existence, from God, because you are not even giving yourself a chance to meet that energy within you. So anyway, I'm curious what's coming through for you as I share all that. There's kind of more, that I can share, but I think noticing the energetics of any tool that has become your master and is essentially a bad master, right? There's many things that are very good tools and a bad master in this life. And we don't want to let something like a convenience or an innovation tool and look at it and say, oh, it knows better than me, when nothing knows better than you. And reminder, all these technologies were created by, humans who have the source, and the technology is just trying to replicate the source. And it's like, you're the fucking source, not that thing. It's not a God, it's literally us channeling it through us.
Yeah. Wow. I'm definitely having a lot of pings here. I want to dive more into that moment. And I want to get your perspective on what you think energetically is happening, even if it's just like a theory that's coming to you right now, because I definitely have my theories on what happens in that moment just by connecting what happens with emotional alchemy. And I'm curious, in that sacred moment, what you believe is really happening there.
Okay, what I'm getting is very interesting. It's literally the moment that chaos is turning into order, and that confusion is turning into clarity and harmony. And this is an energetic dynamic I think it's explained by Gene Key 64, I want to say. I'm forgetting it slightly. It's 63 or 64. That is essentially like the chaos and confusion before you get to the true illuminated state of something. And it's like imagining ourselves as these energetic blobs that are moving around and flowing and moving, and maybe sometimes we're a little bit chaotic and things are more spread out. When you get a creative idea, it's literally like all of the pieces are coming together and then wanting to be poured into a specific place. So it's a literal gathering of the parts to create a sacred harmony of a thing that will be sensed and felt and received and heard. And that's why it's uncomfortable, because sometimes it could be very chaotic. The energy could be floating everywhere. And I think this is what's happening when you feel an idea coming through, but you're like, I just don't have the clarity yet. It's like the pieces are literally floating around you in this soup. And you are like, you're literally the channel waiting for them to be fully in your orbit so that you can fucking put them together and make the thing. And yeah, I think that's what's happening. Is I think you're literally turning either chaos or randomness into order or beauty or some sort of like literal harmonious geometric shape of energy.
Okay, I'm getting a lot come through around the energetics of what's happening here, which is connecting to what you're saying. We know that our mind is this radio receiver, and thoughts and ideas are entities that exist as specific frequencies in this soup, the quantum realm. When we are in this stream of creativity, there's this moment of discomfort where you energetically are not receiving the idea that is already has its eyes on you. And it's like, that's the receiver. That's the channel that I'm choosing. And energetically, sometimes you've been there, sometimes you haven't. And when you sit down to write is when the mind becomes usually the most active, because your logic and the reasoning behind, okay, this is how I'm going to do this. You start really thinking about just like the logical sequence of what you're about to do, right? When you are preparing to dive into your creative venture, which makes sense because that's the balance of the masculine and feminine. The masculine is going to bring you to your easel, and then the feminine is going to allow the mind to drop But what happens energetically in that moment, I'm curious if this connects for you and if this is making sense. But what I'm sensing and feeling into is when you are attached to the thoughts of the mind and you're more so in the discomfort of not knowing, of not fully snapping into being that stream, you're more so attaching to thoughts that will keep you in a specific frequency. And usually, if you're attaching to those thoughts and then leaning on ChatGPT, it's the frequency of, I don't know, I'm not smart enough, I can't do this. And that can feel very dense. And the way that we want to get out of that in today's world of technology is by immediately knowing, oh, this thing knows, so I'm going to go over here. But energetically, you're not actually elevating yourself into a space of alleviation of that. It's more of an illusion of it. And this is exactly how it goes for emotional alchemy too. If you're feeling uncomfortable, you're moving through anxiety, a wave of anxiety, the phone, you reach for your phone and you get this like surge of dopamine when you're scrolling. And with the creative process, I feel energetically there is this sacred attunement that's happening in that moment of, what were you calling it? The sacred molasses.
Which part? Like, yes, energetic molasses of resistance.
Yes, yeah. And if you guys are listening and there's a little bit of delay between Bella and I, it's because my Wi-Fi is fucked up right now. But that molasses is actually where you almost, I get exactly what you're saying. It's like you gain your stripes, you like earn your place in that energetic alignment. And as you start to detach from those thoughts, that truly is the elevation of your energy and alignment with the idea and the creative flow that has literally already chosen you. You wouldn't get the hit if it hadn't chosen you. So that is such an important thing to know, is that the creative idea and the answer is already seeking you and has sought you out and has chosen you. And the way that you choose it back is to honor that sacred process of energetic attunement to the creative idea, the answer. And I can just see how energetically the greatest inventions and those that have thought of, just honestly, like philosophers, these ways of thinking that you have to be audacious enough to align with that stream of consciousness, you know? And if you're just starting your creative journey, this is going to feel so abstract and it's like something you can't even grasp, because the difference of what you're used to versus what you're going into with connecting to that creativity flow is going to feel so vast, and the contrast is going to be so big. But then once you really embrace the creative lifestyle, I can see how, I feel like this is what I'm about to really just absorb more in my own life. I can see how you just start to have this dance that you have embodied for all the years that I've known you, of understanding how to create the relationship with the creative flow, but then also to maintain it and to nurture it so that it doesn't feel so, the contrast isn't there. You're still going to have the sacred discomfort, but I can sense also with like my journey of learning emotional alchemy, this is why I would have these like insane months of being knocked off my feet, because I wasn't understanding that like process of just getting still, honoring the discomfort, being with it, learning how to feel, and then aligning myself with literal, I say it's like in that moment of stillness, you're aligning yourself with God, with the universe, with your heart space. And that's where you start to connect to thoughts and wisdom that are beyond just your programmed mind. And I can see that being very similar to the creative process. And this is why so much art is created through the process of emotional alchemy.
Yes.
It's so similar. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I'm getting this really powerful visual, and maybe I'll try to like plot this out as like a graphic, because it's actually really good. It's like the parallel here with both these processes, and I'll just speak to it specifically with creativity, is imagine that you have this like line, right? And point A is the initial idea, the inspiration, and point B is you made it. You did the thing, right? You wrote the book or the essay, or you did like you made your kitchen meal, whatever, the end point, quote unquote end point. Where people get stuck, and let's say that there's points between A and B. Once you get the idea, this first section is where the doubt, the confusion, the lack of clarity is. And what happens is people get so uncomfortable in this first tiny inch of it that they just loop there. They just stay there. They just say, oh, I got an idea. Oh my God, it's so cool. Fuck, I don't know how to do this. Oh my God, I don't know how to do this. I suck. I'm a failure. I'm not creative. I can't do it. Then get back to the beginning. Another idea. It's the same loop over and over. And that becomes your program. And that becomes your whole view of creativity is I'm not creative. I never know what to do next. You try to Google, you try to chat GPT your way through it, and it just never feels good. So you're stuck in this loop here. What we are teaching you is if you can just get yourself to keep going just a little bit past that first section, you will reach an initial breath of relief and breath of fresh air to get you a little bit further down, where now you're in the process and you're doing it and you're feeling it. You're getting more clarity. You're keeping going. Okay, amazing. Another bit of resistance comes in. You can keep doing the loop again, give up, start over. Ideally, what happens is you start to do this dance like you just described, where you are flowing through it and this is how, for me, I'm like, I get an idea. I'm like, I know this fucking process. I'm going to have questions about it. I'm going to resist it. I'm not going to know, but I fucking know what's on this path. So I just keep going. And then you get to the end and you're like, holy shit, that was amazing. And then what do you do? Because you're a human here to just keep rinsing and repeating the creative process. You have the audacity, like a crazy person, to go back to the beginning. But this time you're like, I know how this is going to be. But so many of us get stuck in that first part and we're just looping here, and then we identify with that and we think it's all there is, etc. Yeah. And then what I saw finally of this visual is you think there's gold at the end. But what you realize is you get to the end and you zoom out and you realize the whole thing is encased in like a gold nugget. And then you take this access point that's like a linear timeline and you tilt it this way as if point A is quote unquote at the bottom, point B is at the top. This is the ascension process of the more you do this process, you're actually spiraling upward. So you think when you get another idea and you face resistance, you're back at the beginning. No, you're not. You are going upward. You're spiraling upward and you're ascending through your process. And this is literally the essence of like the human experience, is to see how every time you're picking up data, this is something I know well because of my gift 54 of ascension, is like being able to spiral upward, and you get so good at understanding the process, and then you just become one with it, and it's a dance, and you are totally okay and not making meaning out of the fact that resistance has shown up again. And as we know with any upward spiral, sometimes the higher up you go, quote unquote higher up, the resistance can feel even stickier and the demons take on a new mask, and that's how it works.
Oh my God, it's so good. When you're describing that visualization that you started with of the spot that people loop in, where you get the idea and then you go to do it and then you're in the loops of like, I don't know, I'm not creative, I can't do this. I had this visual of like a creative idea being its own entity and having like a personality, and going and choosing a being to be the channel for it to be birthed into the 3D. And what happens at that point is our little human minds get the idea, not realizing that we received it. And we think, okay, I must go figure this out. I must go use my logical mind to literally figure this out. When really the idea was like, hey, I'm right here. You just got to make yourself available for me to come through you even more. And that is that sacred moment of detachment from trying to figure it out to really surrendering, and you become the channel in that moment. But without understanding how this works, of us being the receivers and the thought being its own entity and it choosing you and channeling through, we'll get stuck in the loops of the mind where you are actually correct because you're not meant to figure it out. So you are literally correct in your thoughts of like, I don't know. Like, yes, correct. You don't know. You're not meant to know. And it's those that are audacious enough to like find beauty in the not knowing that actually end up receiving the clarity. But when you put the pressure on yourself to know the answer, then it's like, okay, you either give up, you throw the idea out the window, or hello, ChatGPT.
Right. Yeah. And it's also the mind and the logic coming from the shadow side of fear and gripping of like, pressure, I have to do this or whatever it is, versus there is such a distinct feeling of when you're using your mind and logic, especially if that's something you're very gifted at, but it's coming from source versus coming from like the conditioned version of those energies. And that's when, this is what I imagine, Nikola Tesla and these philosophers, and they were truly spinning in quote unquote mental energies, but it was a whole body experience.
Yes. Yep.
That then there is like, people who are so gifted at mathematics and geometry, and they can like see these patterns and they can connect dots on things. And, we would say it errs more on the side of science, but people who are extremely talented in those fields all know that they're the same thing. Like science becomes spirituality and spirituality becomes science. And then it's all just one coin. And you can feel in your body when you're using your mind in a way that is in flow and has source informing it versus has your conditioning and fear informing it. So it's literally, and this is why we say plugging into source, because then by all means, please like use your mind to its highest degree, but understand that it's the consciousness you're putting behind it. And it's in that loop where you're being informed by the fears, the shoulds, the conditioned self, therefore not the highest self. And all those things just don't feel right. Like you're saying, you don't know right now. And that's sort of the point of it, because there's the release that makes you available to the answer that will inevitably come.
Right. This is also what happens when you step into the role of being a healer. It's the same dance. And I'm just recognizing how any process where the divine is flowing through, whether it be feeling your emotions or creating or healing yourself or facilitating healing for another being, there's just simply a moment of letting God in the door. And that is truly what it is. Like we can sit here and systemize the process and all the things, and that actually does help our mind understand. And it's like how Bashar says, you give yourself permission slips to just open the door and be more of you. But it really does help to understand the system. But what's really happening is you're just getting out of your own way and letting God in the door. And it's really beautiful when you think of it that way, because then you're not alone. You're not struggling. You're not like white knuckling it through the process. And it's just that sacred dance of how open can I become? How much can I be the true receiver for this? Become the one available, like how you were mentioning on a last activation session in the portal. It is so beautiful, because what you were sharing with the story of you going to that concert, and the artist was just talking about his journey of creating music, and that revelation of just becoming available for your vision, for your creative venture, your ideas, your priorities shift, and the stress kind of just like melts off, and you really start to prioritize your energetic being in a way that feels very unique to you, very special, very sacred. And spirituality and energetic work, it's not this like checklist item anymore. It's a sacred devotion to literal source.
Yes. Oh my God. So powerful. Yeah. And I'm actually going to save that. I was going to share more deep details about that revelation on a bonus segment. So that's so good.
Yeah. Wait, by this time, would we have announced it to the public, the updates to the membership? We could give you guys a sneak peek.
Well,
cat's out of the bag.
Whenever this comes out, so at some point you're going to realize there's something new in our membership. So go to the website and figure
something
it out.
New. The whole membership is completely different. And if it's not up out to the public yet, it will be in either like a week or 2 weeks. but you'll keep an eye out because we're upgrading the entire Oasis membership, and we will be including exclusive content off the record for the Omis. Yeah, definitely would love for you to share that story inside of there. Yeah, this is, I feel like, such an important conversation to have. And I'm curious, maybe we could just turn it on the other side now and just start to talk about maybe some conscious ways that we can use chat. And we definitely use it in our business for moments where it's not requiring creative flow. And I'm curious for you, you were saying that you had a friend reach out to you and ask this. So what did you respond with that question of when you use it consciously?
Yeah. So, I mean, I shared, about that, just having that awareness on your own energetic dynamics of just noticing the sort of impetus of when and why you find yourself going to ChatGPT. And essentially what I arrived at for myself and what I was sharing with this friend is you can just notice when you are going to it, and you almost, I do think sometimes we have a voice in the back of our head that's like, you really need to do this? Like, I think you can figure this out. And you can tell when that's, when that's coming from this higher sort of voice that's like, hold on. Like, you actually are going to feel really good when you sit with this. So kind of as like a overview, I'll speak personally. Like, to me, this tool is exceptionally powerful for things that, imagine what you would actually ask someone to help you with because you truly are seeking a sounding board, or you have, you maybe lack the organizational skills for something. And you're like, hey, can you look at this? I have this idea. Can you help me organize it for this purpose? That's great. I love that, because it's, especially if you have something that, you would normally be like, hey, can we mastermind this together? Or you want to clean something up, and you're not totally altering the original state of the thing. That's really big, because that's sort of the difference between, at least in my mind, using it for almost like as an assistant versus using it as a total like editor and create replacement of your creative energy. And that approach I find to be really helpful, where I can even like, this is where you get even specific with how you prompt it. If I have a whole outline for, a workshop or a session, but I just would like it to be edited, to be cleaned up, not to change the state of it, but just as like having an assistant who would do that, amazing, right? And then if I want to very consciously be like, okay, am I missing anything here? But I always make sure that I feel that I've truly sat with it enough and have meditated on it, contemplated, taken a walk with it, etc., before I let ChatGPT come in and add things in. And it's really just personal of noticing where that energy is coming from. Like, are you just trying to jump to the end of the process because you think you don't know, etc., everything we just talked about? Or is it truly at a point where this is like an assistant and we rely on other people all the time, right? It's not to say you have to be completely self-sustaining and you can never seek help, right? We obviously seek sounding boards for advice and we just want to talk something out. And that's also really good too. I think I used to use it more for processing my own consciousness and like subconscious things and all these things. And I think it was interesting for a time. But then I started to think about, okay, again, let me sit with it for a little bit longer by myself. And then if I want to, if no one's available for me to call on the phone, or I just want this like true mirror, right? Because at the end of the day, with ChatGPT, it's effectively just mirroring back to you, your own either biases or your own information about yourself. You can prompt it to be more challenging, but those uses are also good too, of like processing this thing. You just want to talk it out and then have this intelligence, parse it out for you and reflect it back. I think that's fine. It's really just all about the energy. That's why it's tough to just be like good use, bad use. I think we all know when we're going to it out of either escaping or trying to jump to the end of that process versus like, oh, this is actually a genuine value add and I'm not giving my power away to this thing.
Yeah. Now I'm realizing it's so unique to each individual. because I used to do that too with the processing as well, like going and talking to it like a fucking therapist. But I haven't in a long time. I just kind of stopped myself from doing that because I believe that we all have these powers within us to be our own healers, where you're actually connecting with your higher intelligence always to receive exactly what it is. And yeah, I've had some pretty big breakthrough moments with chat and using it as a mirror in that way. So I'm definitely not saying it's bad or something that like if you find a lot of use in to stop doing, but I would challenge everyone to be in that sacred discomfort, because what I find also is there's the process of actually feeling emotions before intellectualizing them. And when we're leaning too much on just intellectualizing them and getting the answer as to why we're feeling that way, I think it can cut into the process that we start to create this like adaptation and habit that, again, it feels innocent at first and then it kind of snowballs.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, again, it's like, it's personal. This is where your own awareness, your own work on your own consciousness is everything here, because it would also be, the same energy if we were like, this is good and this is bad. It's like, no, just observe the energetics of it. I have my own opinion on, when something is supporting you or not, and this sense I get of the creative process, but it's so personal. And the key is always to be asking yourself, like, is this truly serving my highest good? Do I feel my power with this? Is this expanding me? And maybe for a time it is, because I agree. I've had the same thing where I've had huge breakthroughs with processing something with chat and giving it all this interesting information, being like, look at this and this, and match this with this thing. And that's amazing. That's so cool. And that's where you can really be in more of this dance with it. And there's no doubt that we're going to also find, it's already starting now, but in coming years, really cool, conscious ways to use these tools that truly does expand our consciousness and serves our highest good. It's always about the consciousness put into it. That's everything at the end of the day. Is the consciousness put behind it? Is it coming from love or fear?
Right.
And being okay with that process. And
yeah, like I see that girl who talks to the iPad and she like asks the questions that are like very mind expansive, and a lot of people are having awakenings from listening to this iPad talk about these like deeper questions about reality. And sometimes I just want to let that girl know she also has access to that same information, like it's cool to do. Yeah.
It's also not actually saying, this is the one thing I noticed with that, I know exactly what you're talking about, is there's just a stage where, like, when Google came out, everyone was like, oh my God, Google. I Googled this and it told me this. And now we're like, yeah, it's a fucking search engine. It's going to populate results. Like, I'm not saying it's not an amazing invention. With that whole thing of the girl asking the questions to the iPad, first of all, ChatGPT is pulling from information that humans already know. Like, it's just a medium between the source. So I just kind of giggle because I'm like, she's mind blown as if this is saying something that is totally radical and new. I'm like, no, we know this. Like, we already know this. The information is either in you or there's another human being that, ChatGPT researched on the internet and then pulled the information. So I think there's like subtle when you feel like it's becoming, oh my God, praise chat. It knows so many things. It's so advanced, versus being like, wow, that's fascinating information. Let me go into it on my own. It's just a different feeling of when the awe of that comes from a more organic process than the awe of like, oh my gosh, bow down. Like, this thing is insane. It's like, okay, there's nuance with that. Yeah,
it's almost like pedestalization of spiritual teachers, but just now with chat.
Yes, exactly. This is why it's anywhere. It's just it pops up at any time in any tool or thing or person. Whether you're praising the person, they're like, oh my God, they're the God. They know everything. It's like, yes, they're amazing. They have great teachings. I love it. We have reverence for our teachers. Absolutely. But when like you can just feel almost that spark going over there and like
Yes.
giving it to them as if they have something you don't.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah, it's such a good conversation. I feel like we're going to get a lot of messages from people on this one. And yeah, just so you guys know, we're really on this journey with you of finding this balance and this dance with this. And I think it just takes a level of like ownership, of awareness of how we're using the tools, and like a sense of curiosity of, okay, how does this feel in my body when I'm going to it for this? And also your own personal preference of what you wish to experiment with creativity. Because if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you are someone that really has that creative urge coming alive. So there's a reason you're tuned into this. But there are also some beings in this realm that came here to live different kinds of lives, and leaning in on these tools to a different degree and extreme is their path as well. So really feel into your own individual resonance with this. Do you have any final words?
Just go fucking start the project that you're putting off. Do the thing, okay? Take the next step. If the idea is hot and you feel like the chaos is turning into order, fucking strike while the iron is hot. That is very real. So my final word is just, if during this conversation you had something in mind coming through of that project, that venture for you, go spend time with it, meditate with it, go listen to the other episode where we talked about creative ideas being their own entity, and make yourself available to it. You will not regret it. It's one of the most life-giving things that you can do as a human and with your earthly experience. Which,
by the way, I sent that episode to a guy at we were sitting next to at a restaurant in Comporta. I'll share this. I'll share this on the exclusive episode when I give the life update and stuff. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we love you so much. Definitely keep an eye out for the Oasis updates, because they're going to be fucking amazing. And if you're listening to this a few weeks after it's come out, then definitely go check out the updates right now. And we love you guys. We'll see you next week. Peace and love.
Bye.